Part 3 of Full Court Press Basketball Debate, the December 29th edition. Chris Guyette here with Yvonne Juneau, continuing on the Christmas Day games. Game 4. Headline reads, Chicago easily beats the Lakers without Kobe. 113-93 was the final score of this game in Chicago. Yvonne Juneau, your thoughts on the outcome?
I'm not even sure Kobe would have made that big a difference. I think he would have made some difference. But I don't know what's going on with the Lakers. I have no idea, and it upsets me to no end to say that. And it upsets me not only mostly for Kobe. Because, I mean, really? Besides Kobe, what are we talking about here? I really don't have a lot to say about the Lakers because there isn't a lot to say.
Well, you're right. My thoughts on this game are that the Bulls are the superior team, clearly. The Bulls are the superior team in the East right now. I mean, it's pretty clear to me, okay?
Yeah.
And
I never, ever, ever dreamed I'd be saying that. But but between what Rose is doing and Butler is doing it, I mean, it's like...
So let's go straight to part C. Are the Bulls the favorite to win the East? That's pretty simple for me. Right now, right at this particular moment, oh yes.
Yeah.
Because Derrick Rose is back and healthy and playing well. Pau Gasol is doing his thing. Joakim Noah is doing his thing. And I want to point out...
Noah didn't do that great last night.
I want to point out the fact that Jimmy Butler...
Oh my God!
If Jimmy Butler does not win Most Improved Player in the NBA, there's an issue. Because...
Don't you think he qualifies for the status of MVP?
Not yet.
Why not?
Because Curry's up there, because Harden's up there, because Anthony Davis is...
I'm not saying he should win it.
He's not...
But shouldn't he even be considered?
Not yet.
Why?
Not yet, because he's not putting up those kinds of numbers. He's not. He's not. He's putting up the scoring numbers. He's putting up the scoring numbers, but the MVP is not the scoring champion. The scoring champion is not necessarily the MVP.
So in what category is he lacking? In assists, rebounds, or what?
Rebounds are decent. Assists, block shots, steals. He's a good defender, but he doesn't have the defensive numbers.
Okay.
He doesn't shoot at an extremely high field goal percentage, which kind of... I mean, he's below 45% as a field goal percentage. That kind of rattles home a little bit. But could he be by the end of the season?
Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. If he keeps this up, yeah, I'm not saying he won't be considered.
But you're saying if
right
you had to pick
now,
right at this moment.
If I had to pick an MVP right now, it would be James Harden. With Anthony Davis as a close second.
I agree.
2 weeks ago, that was opposite.
Right.
Now, it's James Harden.
Oh, my God.
But I want to talk about how the Chicago Bulls, people were coming in and saying Rose is iffy, and with validity. With validity.
Legitimately so.
Okay. Who expected this out of Jimmy Butler? Absolutely no one. Taj Gibson's doing his thing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a fantastic basketball team.
Yeah.
And right now, yeah, they've got to be the favorites to win the East. Even though Toronto is number 1, they've beaten Toronto.
Right.
They've beaten Washington.
Right.
They've beaten Atlanta. They've done it. They've lost some stupid close games. One to Milwaukee, which I will never forgive Jimmy Butler for missing that last shot that was wide open.
Yeah.
Okay? But that happens. You get over that. And now...
They got to stay in the mindset they're in right now. And you know the main thing that's going to keep them there? If Rose does not have to sit out with another injury. Every time he has to sit out with some kind of pull something or strain something or whatever, it's like it throws them totally off kilter. Which it should not do, but it does.
Game 5. And this is the one that I really want to talk about. The Clippers send Golden State packing. 100-86, Clippers win. Yvonne, who did this game show more about? Los Angeles or Golden State?
I got it wrong big time. I wanted the Clippers to win, but I picked Golden State because I thought they were a shoo-in. I never in a million years thought the Clippers were going to beat Golden State. I didn't. Did you get that one wrong?
No.
You picked the Clippers
From the
over
very
Golden
beginning.
State.
Yep.
Where was your mind and what was your mindset that day? Because they were playing at home?
No. Thank you for asking that question because I'm about to go on a rant.
Well, I want to know what your thought process was.
I'm about
for
to
you
go on a
pick.
rant.
And I mean, they didn't just beat them by
Warning.
a couple of points.
Warning.
They beat them by 14
Warning.
points.
I'm about to go on a Stephen A. Smith-esque rant. Okay? That has true validity to it.
By all means, go for it.
All this MVP talk surrounding Stephen Curry, it's deserved. It's deserved.
Not to the extent that it's being blown up.
What have I said
Not to the extent
about Stephen Curry all year long?
that he's a one-dimensional player.
That's one thing. And the other thing is that he does not show up in big games. This is an example of that. 14 points in 35 minutes on 5 of 12 shooting. But, you know what? That wasn't his doing. Allow me
To reintroduce you.
to reintroduce you to CP3.
Yeah. Oh, he met his match, honey.
No.
There is no
Curry met his senior.
his nemesis.
Curry,
Yes.
it's not even his nemesis because it's not even close. Curry met a better player. Not met. Was reintroduced to a better player, to a better man, to a better point guard, to the best two-way player in the game of basketball, Chris Paul.
You're not going to get any arguments out of me.
Which brings me to this. 26 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals in this game. Why doesn't he do this every game?
You and I have had this discussion
What?
so many times. I don't know.
What have I said?
I don't know. It's got something to do with Blake Griffin. I don't know if he feels sorry for him. I don't know if Doc is telling him, give the ball to Blake more so that he can make more shots. I don't know if Chris feels like he's the one who should be there to set it up for Blake to make the shot. I don't know what Chris is thinking. But Chris should do this in every game because he can.
All 3 of your inferences are good but wrong. I'll tell you
Then I don't
exactly
know.
what the problem is. In this game, what is Stephen Curry known for?
3-point shooting.
Offense. Poses absolutely no threat defensively, correct? Correct. Okay, now tell me why Sunday, because we're Tuesday today, tell me why he faces Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul, and gets 12 points on 5 of 13.
I know what you're going to say, and I resent the hell out of it. I know what you're going to say. He was intimidated.
He is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
I don't see Chris Paul being intimidated by anybody.
Then what is this?
I do not see Chris Paul
Then
being
what is
intimidated
this?
by anybody.
Then what is this? Because
History has proven.
he takes 18 shots against the Golden State Warriors, and he only takes 12 shots against the Toronto Raptors. Blake Griffin against Golden State takes 15 shots. Against Toronto, he takes 24 shots. That means, Yvonne, that Chris Paul
Took a step back against
comes
Toronto.
up the floor and immediately passes the ball. Immediately. Looks for nothing
But
himself.
we don't know what he's being told, and we don't
You
know
really
what
think
he's-
Doc Rivers, when he signed on with the Los Angeles Clippers last year, he said his dream was to coach Chris Paul. Not to coach the Clippers, not to coach Blake Griffin, not to coach in Los Angeles.
How do we know what happened between Chris and Blake?
What happens between Chris and Blake is pretty clear. Chris Paul is the best point guard in the game of basketball today, according to 95% of the nation. Okay? Blake Griffin is your sidekick. It's clear. It was clear in this game against Golden State. Biggest game of the season for the Clippers coming into that game. And Chris Paul absolutely takes over. But against Toronto, you pass the ball. Why? Because Kyle Lowry's the better defender? Let's be honest. Kyle Lowry's good. Kyle Lowry's very good. But he ain't half of Chris Paul. I'm sorry.
No.
He's not. So knowing that, why not take advantage of that? Chris Paul
Maybe Blake resented the fact that Chris Paul took over in the Golden State game. And he's trying to keep the morale of the team. I don't know, but I do not see Chris Paul being intimidated by anybody.
Oh, yes? So what if they face Dallas in the playoffs?
I guess we'll see.
Rajon Rondo's the point guard in Dallas.
I'm very much aware of
Chris
that.
Paul has never had to come into contact with Rajon Rondo in a playoff format.
I guess we'll see.
Rajon Rondo is the best damn defensive perimeter point guard, one of the best all time, because of his length, because of the size of his hands, because of his quickness and his athleticism.
And he's young.
What's Chris Paul going to do then? Pass the ball to Blake Griffin, who, by the way, in that game will probably be guarded by Tyson Chandler, one of the best in the business.
I agree. Should be a hell of a game.
He's going to pass the ball to Blake Griffin. Well, in this Toronto game, Blake Griffin was guarded by Amir Johnson and Jonas Valanciunas. They were switching faces at him. Now, Chris Paul probably has the third highest basketball IQ in the game today, behind only Kobe and LeBron. Okay?
Okay.
So knowing that they're switching defenders on Blake Griffin, you're not going to give the ball to Blake Griffin because you don't know who's going to be guarding him going down the floor. And you know that you can take Kyle Lowry to school.
I don't know what
It's
the reason
intimidation.
was. It was not.
It is.
I do not see
It
Chris
is.
Paul being
It
intimidated
is intimidation
by anybody.
because he thinks that, damn, that's a good defensive point guard. Let me pass the ball. Curry poses no threat defensively, and Chris knows that going in. But Chris has to know that nobody can stop him. But for some ungodly reason, maybe it's because Vinny Del Negro, who coached the Clippers before Doc Rivers did, was such a Blake Griffin lover. Maybe that's in Chris's head still. I don't know. But
I don't know what the reason is either, but I know it's not
But you-
intimidation.
okay, but you can tell when he comes up the floor. Last night, you just watched highlights of the Utah game.
Mm-hmm.
Did Chris Paul look confident in that game? Because last time I checked, Blake Griffin had almost 30 points last night. And
Uh-huh.
Chris Paul had under 15. And took way too little shots. Way too little shots. They barely...
There is a reason this is happening.
Right, there is.
And I don't think it's intimidation.
It is lack of confidence. It is lack of confidence.
This is Chris Paul we're talking about.
Look at the way he dribbles coming up the floor.
This is Chris Paul
You're
we're
not telling me
talking about.
you're not telling me anything I don't know. In New Orleans, in 2007, I'm about to prove my point, and you're about to come to a reality check. Okay? In 2007, the New Orleans Hornets, the glory season in New Orleans, Western Conference Finals, Game 7, we lose by 18 to the San Antonio Spurs. One game from the finals. Throughout that entire season, Chris Paul averaged 22 points, 11 assists, 5 rebounds, and 4 steals a game. The confidence was oozing out of him. You could tell by the way he moved, by the way he was just dribbling the ball, coming up, doing a jig while he was dribbling. You could tell the confidence was oozing out of him and was radiating onto other players. For New Orleans. Peja Stojakovic,
Right.
David West.
Right.
He and Tyson Chandler on the alley-oops.
On the alley-oops, yeah.
Morris Peterson, Mo Pete. You remember Mo Pete?
Yeah.
Okay? Devin Brown, Melvin Ely, all these guys. It was oozing out of him. It was oozing out to Byron Scott, who was the coach at the time. Byron Scott always had a smile on his face. Do you see that in Los Angeles? Because a guy like Chris Paul, his mentality rubs off on the other players.
Absolutely.
Do you see that?
And besides that, he never shuts up the whole time he's on the court.
Well, he's never going to do that.
No.
Do you see that in Los Angeles? Do you see that same swagger in Chris Paul? Do you see that swagger in Blake Griffin? Do you see that swagger in DeAndre Jordan or J.J. Redick or Jamal Crawford or even Doc Rivers? Does Doc Rivers look happy coaching that team right now?
Well, he did last night.
Okay, that's against Utah. And you only won by 4. Well, no. Yeah, 4. At home against Utah. But at home you can beat Golden State by 14. There is a common thing here. Against Golden State, you win by 14 and Chris Paul is your leading scorer. We got that. Against Utah, at home, same environment. Blake Griffin is your leading scorer and you win by 4. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see the same Chris Paul? Because I don't. I see a less confident Chris Paul. A more passive Chris Paul. And I'm not talking about passing the ball. That's his job. I'm talking about passing on opportunities. Remember when he used to in New Orleans? You remember what his shot was?
But he got criticized so much for dominating the ball and doing all the shooting.
But he still did it.
But he got criticized
But
for
did
doing
he
it.
still do it?
Yes.
And did it work?
Yes.
So he didn't care. I.e. Allen Iverson. Same thing. He didn't care because it was working. It was working.
Well, what wins the games is the points on the board.
Right. What was his shot in New Orleans? His signature shot. Remember when he'd run around the point guard and he'd get in the paint and he'd go, poop, that little floater? When's the last time you seen Chris Paul do a floater? I don't think I've ever seen Chris Paul do a signature Chris Paul floater while he's playing for Los Angeles. Ever. It's not the same. And guys like Chris Paul, with the talent of Chris Paul, with the basketball IQ, with the star-studded skills that Chris Paul has, your mentality should never change. Your game should never change for anybody, for any team. You really think Doc Rivers? Doc Rivers!
What about the rest of the players? What if everybody else is mad at him all the time because he's dominating the ball? He's
They're
playing
not
the
mad at him
eye
all the time
game.
because he never
he's playing
does that.
the me game. But what if he did? He got criticized for that in New Orleans.
So now he cares. So you're proving my point. It's not the same Chris Paul. Because in New Orleans, yeah, he was criticized. Guess what?
He didn't give a shit.
Guess what? He was 48 votes from winning the 2007 MVP. 48 votes! And it worked. And it got them within one game.
He doesn't want to be painted with that brush. That's the only thing I can say. He doesn't
It's
want to be
not-
known as the ball hog.
It's not the same Chris Paul. You watch highlights of that Utah game. You saw the highlights.
I know. But I don't think it's intimidation.
It is intimidation. It is lack of confidence against certain matchups.
It's not possible he's pulling back on purpose.
Is that not lack of confidence?
No. Maybe he's pulling back on purpose because he doesn't want to be criticized.
To lose a game? Chris Paul is known as a winner. Above all else, and he's been quoted as saying this, Chris Paul, above all else, wants to do what?
Win.
Win. Win, 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 win. He's been in the league 10 years.
He's even been known to say win at all costs.
10 years. This man has dominated the top point guard spot in the NBA. Since he came in, he's been the best. His rookie season.
So why is he so different now that he's with the Clippers?
I don't know. But Doc Rivers, you're gonna disrespect the greatness of Doc Rivers.
No, I'm not saying that Doc is going to him and chewing him out and saying
It's not okay,
you
but
need to take a back seat and let
if
Mike
it's
handle
not
the ball
if
more.
it's not Doc Rivers and it's not Blake Griffin, because I promise you this, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, they're probably best friends, but on that court, Chris Paul is going to do the smartest thing to win the basketball game. Can you disagree with that? Can you disagree with that?
No.
So it's not Blake Griffin. Then who is it?
He got a lot of flack and resentment from some of the other players when he was in New Orleans about being a ball hog. Maybe he doesn't want to be known that way on this team.
But did he again?
No, he didn't care. I don't know.
One game from the Promised Land in 2007. 48 votes from the MVP.
I don't know.
And if you're honest with yourself, if you want to talk about ball hogs, if you're honest with yourself, look at Kobe Bryant, the man that won the 2007 MVP by 48 votes. Okay, I love Kobe to death. There is no bigger ball hog than Kobe Bryant because he's that damn good. Just like Chris Paul. There's not a soul in the NBA that can
So
stop
what you're saying
Chris
is
Paul.
when he when he didn't care what people thought, he was a better player, and now that he does care and he's pulling back.
To Blake Griffin? I'm sorry, is Blake Griffin some kind of prolific all-star scorer MVP that I'm missing? No. But last time I checked, Chris Paul is. Or was.
Hard for me to say anything negative
It's
about
hard
Chris Paul.
for me to say anything negative.
Well, if that's what he's doing not only himself but the team a very big injustice.
Well, exactly. You really think... Suppose the Clippers do meet Dallas in a playoff series.
That's going to be
which,
unbelievable.
by the way, is very likely. Because those are the number 4 and number 5 seeds in the West right now. And the 4 and 5 match up in the first round. Okay? Is he going to pull back? Because...
Against Rondo?
Rondo?
Oh my God, if he pulls back against Rondo, he can just kiss it goodbye.
Because I'm going to tell you something.
Because Rondo could care less.
Exactly.
Rondo does not
And
care.
neither could Dirk. And neither could Parsons. And neither could Tyson Chandler.
And Chris and Chandler already have history from New Orleans.
And we know
So they know how each other
and
plays.
we know Blake Griffin is not going to carry that team to a championship. Because he's not there yet. Is Blake Griffin good? Oh yeah, he's fantastic. But he's not
He's not in the same
there
category.
yet.
He's not in the same category.
Chris Paul is there. Chris Paul has been there for 5 to 7 years.
He has the capability, that's for sure.
Come on.
I don't know what's going
It's a
on.
self-confidence thing.
I don't
It
know.
is an extreme self-confidence thing, and I don't understand it because there's not a soul out of the thousands of players that play in the NBA that can stop Chris Paul on a night-to-night basis. There's not a soul that can do it. There's not a soul that can. It's that simple.
I do know that when he sets his mind to it, you can see it all over his face the minute he changes on
It's
the
like
court.
LeBron.
Right,
It's like Wade.
right,
Kobe.
right.
Chris Paul is lumped up with those guys. Durant, Melo, Paul George, when he's healthy with Indiana, Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, Rondo.
Get out of my way, because here I come.
Chris Paul's lumped up with those guys. Blake Griffin is not.
I don't understand.
It's a self-confidence thing. And I don't get it. And I don't get it. We're going to end part 3 right here because we're going on to a new section with
Okay.
quotes. So part 4 will be coming at you here in just a minute.